A large part of Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord is the combat system. From the simple tournaments to the open field conflicts between two armies, all the way up to either sieging or defending a siege, there are plenty of ways to get up close and personal in Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. But the combat system on the surface seems quite bare bones, and it actually is very intricate. So what we're going to do here today is go into the combat system, talk about some of the combos, some of the feints, some of the little buttons that you might not have even guessed were actually things that did something in the game. And then we're also going to end this video talking about arenas and tournaments. Now, I'm not going to give you strategies on how to beat every single tournament, because some of those will be dependent upon which characters are actually in your respective cities and towns before you jump into those tournaments. Rather, what I'm going to do is talk about the reward system for the arenas, and I'm also going to discuss all of the respective weapons that you would use in each of the arenas. This way, you can kind of make a decision for yourself when you make a new character, which arenas you want to go specialize in, because those arenas have the skills that correspond with your brand new character that you've just made. Well, let's dive in first on some quick little commands and keystrokes that I think the tutorial misses on, but I think are very imperative to actually playing and getting up close and personal with the combat in Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. Let's start off with some basics, and I've paused the game here real quick because a horde of looters is about to charge me like a fat kid in a bakery. So let's pop open the options menu, come over here to mouse and keyboard. A lot of this is what we're going to be going through in this little initial portion. So kick and bash we're going to talk about later in this video, but switch weapon usage we're going to talk about right now, as well as equipping the next weapon and your next shield, and some other little basic things that I maybe have covered in other videos, but I think it's pretty important to talk about as it pertains to combat. So let's go ahead and back out here. My guys are moving away. So real quick, moving up on the mouse wheel is going to swap our weapons. And I'm not doing this in a custom battle because I'll show you guys in a little bit why. It's mainly because I don't have the proper equipment. Now switching down on the mouse wheel will put away our shield or bring out our next one if we have multiple ones. Now this is important because this character is using a sword that doubles as a two-handed sword. So if I put away my shield, then watch my character's hand. I press X, we'll kind of switch his grip up, and he's in two-handed mode. I'll also glitch out like that, which is kind of weird. You can tell because now I'm using two hands to slash through people. If I press X again, he'll switch back to one-handed, as you can see, just one hand being used. There's his shield back. Now the other little quick thing I want to talk about is couching your lance. And I've talked about this before, but look in the lower right corner by my lance and my shield. If I go to max speed by double pressing W, I'm going to see this little symbol pop up. That means my lance is not couched. If I press X, boom, it is now couched. Press it again, it is no longer couched. And hitting someone with a couched lance is pretty basic. I'm going to run on these guys, press X to couch my lance, and you pretty much just kind of have to smash into them. Like that. And boom, there you go. Delivered couch lance damage for 510 damage. You can press R to go into first person, and that kind of helps with aiming your couched lance. Now you'll notice that I have another spear in my back. If I switch over to this and I go to max speed, it does not have the couch lance little dialogue or button that pops up, because you need to have a lance that has couch lance in the tooltip in the inventory menu to do that. This is just a very long spear. Let me get off this horse real quick and show you guys something special about spears though. So spear combat in general is very difficult. I find it extremely hard to use. In this situation here, we're not going to be dealing with anything with any kind of shield fighting me. I'm just going to be fighting these little looters. But if you jump and left click, you will basically stab over a shield and into someone's face. This is going to be big and important for when you're playing tournaments. So if oh my god, they're just launching these rocks at me. If I come closer and jump and stab, well, as I'm not getting just completely hoarded down by looters, you can really get right in someone's face with that, and it's pretty damn strong. So as I try and run back over here to my horse, I'll show you guys some other quick little things in another character. Okay, we're here with my Sturgian character. I'm going to switch to my two-handed axe. Now, one thing you should know about two-handed weapons is they have a chance to carry their blow through to multiple units. So if you're charging down a series of foot soldiers, or if you're actually in a really good situation with cavalry, you can hold down your swing, and this will carry through and hit multiple units at the same time. I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to do it right here, but it's just something I wanted to bring up real quick. Let me see if I can do it. There we go. I hit both of them. Boom. And damn, did it do some damage. So I killed one, and I hit the other one for 37. So you can see that two-handed weapons are very tricky to use. You're sacrificing a lot of defense for the ability to carry through with some of your hits. And if you take a look at the two-handed skills, you can see that some of them actually will give you a lot of benefit when you're using two-handed weapons to give you a higher percentage to carry that blow through. Let's jump over to a custom battle and take a look at some other mechanics. Before we get launched with our custom battle, I want to talk about handling. Now, I'll be covering the individual statistics and all the different weapon types in my own weapon guide that's coming out later this week, but handling is an important part of both combos and combat in general, so I want to cover it right now. So I want you to take a look at this diagram. On the left, you'll see B stands for beginning. On the right, you'll see E stands for end. This represents the beginning and the end of your swing. I've put it as a straight line, but you should envision it as a parabola because, you know, you're swinging a sword. So handling is basically the, I guess, value or the sweet spot in which your swing will do the max amount of damage. The higher the handling, the larger the sweet spot. So, for example, with 85 handling, I have a larger sweet spot, as you can see here. With 70 handling, I have a smaller sweet spot. Now, this means that if I'm on horse or on foot, that's where I'm going to need to want to hit the enemy the most as I carry through my swing. If I hit him right where I'm starting, my momentum's not even carrying through, and at the very end, my momentum's dying down. Momentum is a huge part of this game's combat mechanics, but I really wanted to hit that really quick before jumping into feints and combos, because that all plays hand in hand on how that all works. Now, one thing is with range combat. Now, range combat, you hold down left click, you'll draw your arrow back, and if I keep holding it down, you'll notice he'll kind of get exhausted, his arm's getting weak, and he can't really hold the bowstring that much longer. I'm less accurate now, and I'll finally let go, and it's just shooting wildly off to the side. If I hold down shift, I can get a better idea of where I'm going to shoot. So if I want to aim for like this little knot in the tree, I'll pretty much just press left click, and there we go. You don't have to hold it down if you don't really want to, unless you're really trying to aim at a shot. Now, by default, if you press left click, the character knocks his arrow immediately. So if you press left click, though, you know, oh, I don't want to shoot this arrow yet. Just hold right click, he'll knock it immediately, you're good to go. Right click, from now on, you should kind of almost look at as like an animation canceling button. If you think of it, rather than just saying block, you can use it to cancel animations or create feints, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, if I mount up on my horse, that's going to change the dynamic of shooting with the bow. Right now, you know, the bow is pretty much okay. If I hold down left click, I can now see it's much harder to take this shot. Now, this will depend on a lot of things. On your individual bow skill, on your crossbow skill. Remember, you can't use crossbows on horseback until you get the corresponding level of riding or crossbow that allows you to do so. In addition, riding on a horse with either thrown, crossbow, or an actual bow will increase the amount of damage if you're at full speed when you hit someone. And if they're charging at you, it'll do even more damage. You'll see in a damage report, I think if I shoot right now over here, let me see if I can get this to go here without her actually attacking us. Okay, see, it says relative missile speed, 62.5 meters a second. Well, if I was going at full speed and she was going at full speed, then that would be a higher amount and would basically act as kind of like a damage multiplier. This is the same thing for all types of melee weapons, especially couched lances. So if you're riding at full speed, you're holding down click, and you swipe at someone and you hit them, you will do a significantly more chunk of damage riding at full speed than if I was just to be like this and swiping and chopping at people. So keep that in mind. It also works on foot too. If you're running at someone and you get a chop at them, you'll do more damage than if you're just standing there swinging wildly. So as we jump back real quick here to range weapons real fast, just again, dependent upon your archery skill, where it's at, whether it's bow, whether it's crossbow, whether it's thrown, this ability to shoot from horseback will be hindered or more accurate. Also, the actual physical bow you have and its accuracy rating will kind of really determine how far apart these little reticles are as you're kind of marching at full gallop, or even if you're just stationary. So while this character has all these amazing skills in custom battle, yours won't from the start. So don't get discouraged if you're starting the game and you can't quite hit things with a bow and arrow. It's a little challenging. What really increases that bow and arrow skill is the relative distance from your target to you and the difficulty of the shot. So if I were to headshot this person all the way down there, I will get more bow experience than if I were just to shoot them in the leg or the chest. In addition, charging at full gallop and hitting them with a shot, hitting them with a headshot, will give me more experience for not just bow, but for riding. Remember, anytime you're using any weapon on a horseback, you're going to get the corresponding skill and you're going to get riding experience. The same thing works as if you're on foot. Whatever your quote-unquote travel skill that you're using at the time, either on foot or on horse, you will then get a buff to. Now, let's jump right over here and let's kind of talk a little bit about feints and combos before we kind of jump over there into that foe down the way. And they're probably like one slash away from dying, but that's neither here nor there. So right before we get into actual combat here, I'm sorry, combos, one thing I do want to note about bow and arrow is that there are some bows that you cannot use on a horse until you get the corresponding skill that allows you to do so. So if you find that you can't use your bow on a horse, hover over it and make sure it doesn't have a little horse head icon with a red X through it. That means you cannot use it on a horse. And also, if I were to shoot this character right now, the little icon that pops up that registers the hit, let me see if I can just get like a leg shot without killing him. Aha, see, that was just a white little blip, like when you're playing Call of Duty or something. Well, that means you just scored a hit. If it's a red one, that means that you got a kill. And if it's a red circle, I believe it is what it is, that's a headshot. So you don't need the damage statistics in the lower left to tell you it's a headshot, but that should kind of help you guys out in determining whether or not you did get a headshot, a kill, or just a normal hit. Now let's switch back over here to our sword. So you see these directions, right? Left, right, up, down. It's like that in the tutorial. It tells you, okay, if you want to pierce, down, if your weapon can pierce. Not all weapons can pierce. So pierce, slash down, and then a cut left, and a cut right. So pretty basic, you know. If for the most part, people are just going to be pressing this button. They're just going to be slamming left click. Whatever swings, swings. Well, as you get better in the game, and as you come across characters with higher one-hand skill or two-hand skill or whatever it is, you don't want to just do that. You want to start being able to feint. And you feint, you'll probably notice that the actual NPCs will do this against you. So let's hold down, let's go for a right slash. And getting your kind of navigation around this can be a little tedious as to what a slash up, a swipe left or right, or a stab would be. So I'd say tinker around with this until you get the directions down right. Let's go with a right slash. It's held back, I'm cocked, I'm ready to go, I'm gonna just swing this. Well, rather than pressing releasing left click like this, we're going to hold it back, then I'm going to press right click quickly, then press left click again. See how I switched hands? And I basically canceled the animation out, and I switched it over to the opposite, well, not switched hands, I'm sorry, switched stance. I'm slowing it, I'm trying to get it really slow for you so you can see, like, I'm basically just doing this. I take my time to really show you. But if I'm running at an enemy, you can slap your horse's butt with your weapon. It'll do 3 damage and he'll run away. Kind of funny, right? So if I'm running at an enemy, and I'm up like this, but then I go like that, ha! That's how you get a feint going. You charge the kind of attack, basically, then switch it over. And this can be done quickly. I mean, you don't have to hold it and swing like for the fences here. You can just kind of left, right click, left, right click, left, right click. And I mean, obviously I just kind of spammed it right there so the game didn't register. But left, right click, left, right click, left, right click. You just use left, right, and click, and you'll switch up. And it's depending, of course, where your camera is. I mean, I can go for a slash, and then down for a stab. I can go up for a downward cut, then right click and leftward swing. So using these feints can be really crucial when you're doing tournaments, when you're playing PvP, when you're fighting against someone with a really good one-handed skill. So we switch over here to a guy with an axe. I had recorded this initially with the previous dude who had a saber, but again, the longer the reach, then the harder it is to combo because those typically have slower attack speeds. So with a hand axe, a one-handed axe here, you're going to notice how much faster this process is going to be. So what you really do is we're gonna wind up here to the right, And the principle is, when I release right click, you can see the character kind of swing his axe, right? Well, the principle is that you don't want to spam left click. You want to let the character swing its axe, and about the tail end of the attack, press left click again, and the character should carry his momentum into the direction you're facing. So, let me see if I can just do a right to left one. And I apologize if this looks a little jankety and I mess up. It really is about timing and getting familiar with the weapons that you're primarily using. If you're jumping around to a lot of characters, this timing is going to be a little funky. So, right slash. There it is. There it is. There it is. So anytime the blade kind of crosses over my head and back again, I'm getting it. So it is a really difficult system to master, and I honestly don't use a lot of one-handed axes. I use a lot of one-handed swords. So I chose the one-handed axe for this video because it's easier to show off. And again, you saw how many times I just whiffed. So again, hold right click, left click, and just trying to time that that left click again, right around the end of the swing. So you're basically telling the character, okay, we're ready to go again, swing. And you can do these up, and he actually carried over to the right on that one. And it's about like kind of, there it is again, there it is again. So like when I don't actually when I try not to talk, he does it. Except in those two cases. But again, and I apologize for it looking kind of jankety right there, but it's pretty much the principle of facing a direction, holding right click. Well, you don't need to hold right click. Just pressing right or left click here. Left click. Sorry. Left click. And then pressing left click again right there to get him to carry that axe momentum through to the next swing. Now this can speed you up when it comes to actually fighting, because then you're not having to wait until that animation fixes. And again, right click, cancel that animation. Cancel that animation. You don't have to follow through with an attack. If you're familiar with Dark Souls, just think of this as like a animation canceller to get you out of a bad situation. So before I go dive over there into that individual, the last two things I want to touch on are both shield bashing and kicking. If I press E without holding right click, I kick. And certain skills will benefit you on your kick or your bash. If I hold right click, I'll bash. Your speed on your shield will determine how quick this bash is. If you have a big, large, unwieldy shield, you're not going to be throwing quick bashes. There we go, there's a kick again. And this will kind of disorient your enemy. So some of those skills can actually be better depending on your one-handed, two-handed polearm skill, because there are individual perks in those skills that help out with your shield bash or your kick. So let's bring all this together. Let's do a little combat here. So what we're going to try and do is, and I say this because, you know, it probably will go crazy once we reach the enemy. We're going to come in with a feint. Then we're going to try and do a combo succinctly. Sometimes I just can't get the timing down right now on this axe. We're going to try and do that combo. Then we're going to get a shield bash in, and we're going to hopefully kill her very quickly. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is the size of your character. If you have a taller character, you can swipe down for cheap, easy headshots. And hitting someone in the head is easier, does more damage depending upon their helmet. If they have an open face helmet, you can stab in with a sword and do more damage. Same thing with a spear. Or if you're a smaller character, you can kind of get the whole shield covering you more or less to really maximize your protection. Now when we come into combat here, she's going to be swinging at me. Now we're going to hold right click to bring our shield up. But you don't have to do it directionally. You don't have to, you know, have these directions all set. You can pretty much just kind of bring your shield up and move your camera to block the sword as you see fit. You'll see me doing that. Let's get up in there. Come in with a feint. See how this goes. This axe is tricky. Aha! Aha! You didn't see that, did you, Etheld? Okay, we'll do a little shield bash to try and do a combo here. Oh! Block that in just the nick of time. Oh, it was coming around for the combo. I'll count it. I'll count it. It's so difficult to get off. There it is. There. And again, if I just kind of hack at her head and keep moving like this, it'll kill her. And I wasn't trying to do that. But you do what you can. And again, I don't recommend you do the strafing and head swiping thing. It's kind of cheap. But hopefully this gives you now a better idea of how to bring all these things together, how to get into a quick and dirty combat. Of course, this is a custom battle, so we're all just stacked skills and gear-wise, but hopefully this helps you out. Let's jump on over to some skills real quick before we close our video out with the arena. Before we take a look at those arenas really quick, I want to look at the skill sheet like I said we would. So some of these will again help you out with your one-handed weapons, Swordmaster for example, but like I was saying, you do have an ability that gives you a shield bash that causes an additional 50% damage. Seems pretty great. It stacks with one that's earlier in the tree, so a total of 100%. And then there's this last one. Shield bashes now deal 20% more damage and stun your enemy for longer. So 120% more damage, and you get a nice stun out of it. So you do have a lot of really nice ways to cater your one-handed character or your two-handed character like we talked about earlier. With some nice abilities here. Where is that one that I was talking about? That is so nice. Oh, all two-handed weapons are 10% more likely to crush through. That's the mechanic we were talking about with my Sturgian, where his axe carried through and hit the other guy. Now, I'm not sure if that's negated by armor or if there's some sort of penalty innately based into it, but I wanted to quickly kind of go through some of these skills here with you guys, because there's a lot that really do some nice stuff here, like Rapid Lancer, less couch lance cooldown. Let's go over to the overview and take a look at some arenas. Okay, so we're now back in the full game here, and let's take a look at joining a tournament. So you now get a little bit of a different approach to the way this is done now. You can now see, if you're on the version 1.1 beta patch, as of the writing of this or the recording of this video, you can see the actual stats of the weapon you're going to win, and then you also can bet, of course. Let's skip round, and we'll go to a bet. Now, this was tapped out and actually changed a little bit, but we now actually get a much better betting system, in the sense that each round you get less and less per win, and I think actually your odds, or quote unquote, or your likelihood of winning and thus your rewards are influenced heavily by who is actually in the fight with you. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 named characters. So the odds are actually quite good. You're going to make more money. So this is actually a more challenging fight, but if you bet here, your max bet, you're going to make more money. Typically, in my experience, you're going to get around 225 on the current wager. This little number right here is going to say 225 on the first round, 195 on the second, 165 on the third, and 165 on the fourth, if there are no named characters. So that's just your baseline. So you're betting now, obviously, we're, rather than being at 225 or 240 or 216, which were some of my other tests, this is at 405 because we have way too many named characters here. But this is just me kind of going over real quick how the wager system works. And you would max this out, you'd press accept, and you know, okay, I bet 50 or 150, and my expected is 405. And this is a really good way to make a lot of money in the beginning of the game, because now that this betting system is a little bit more succinct and it makes sense based off of the difficulty of the arena itself, you know how much money you're going to make when you step in, and you can get yourself a nice weapon or piece of armor that is no longer tapped out. In a couple patches ago, they said it's going to be anywhere from 200 to 2,000 in value. I've gotten like an 8,000 value helmet after one of the more recent patches that supposedly balance that out. So don't be discouraged by doing tournaments, but every single one of these tournaments has a different emphasis on what is going to be offered as far as individual items go that you're going to be using in the actual fight. So we've jumped back here over to the overall map, and every single, I guess, culture has got a different type of, again, arena setup. And when I said items earlier, I meant skills. So here is VLANDIA. VLANDIA is going to emphasize a lot of skills using one-handed, riding, polearm, and bow and crossbow. And not all that at the same time. It just depends on which portion of the arena you're doing. Sometimes you'll have a cycle where you never use a polearm because you're not on a horseback, but that's pretty rare. Or you might have one where you never touch a crossbow, which is actually more common than not. So each one of these is a different set of random arena setups per each arena you go to. For STURGIA, you're going to be looking at one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, riding yet again, thrown, and bow. BATTANIA is going to be pretty unique because you're not going to see a lot of riding here, although you will sometimes get it, but you're going to get a lot of one-handed, a lot of two-handed, and a good amount of bow usage in all the arenas in BATTANIA. Taking a look at the Empire arenas, you're going to be using one-handed weapons, thrown, riding, polearm, and bow. Now, one thing to note here is that every single one of these arenas so far, you've noticed that one-handed is being used. Well, STURGIA uses one-handed axe. VLANDIA uses a one-handed arming sword. When you look at the Empire, it's like one-handed spathas or spathas. So each one of these has a different type of one-handed weapon you're using. You will increase the one-handed skill, but if you want to use a specific weapon, try to go with the culture that's going to make the most sense. Because if you're using a arming sword, it has a longer reach, it's going to be slower. Using an axe, again, you're going to be going faster with a lower reach, and you're going to be able to combo easier. KHUZAIT, on the other hand, will be giving you access to riding, polearm, one-handed, and bow. If you haven't noticed here, these cultural arenas kind of match up with what the culture kind of emphasizes for their individual units, tactics, and overall army kind of setups. So go pretty much with what you're thinking is going to make the most sense for your character. And our last one is going to be ASERAI with one-handed, bow, throne, and polearm. A very limited amount of riding I've noticed in ASERAI as well, maybe here and there. But also ASERAI, for their one-handed, you'll notice that you'll also be using a lot of sabers, so a long reach sword, or one-handed maces. This is the only place that I have personally used a one-handed mace in the entire game in the arena. So ASERAIs are going to be dabbling with the one-handed mace. But hopefully this video helps you out, guys, when it comes to fighting in close combat, fighting in arenas, tournaments, all that kind of action. This is a little bit longer form of a video than I'm used to. Usually I try to make these a 15-20 minute one, but hopefully there's a little bit more density to this because the combat system is a little bit more intensive than you would have originally thought going into this game. So take some time, go to a custom battle, and really spend a good amount of time playing around with how those combos are going to work. How those feints are going to work, what weapons you want to specialize in, and how their reach and speed is going to correspond with those feints and with those combos. Hopefully this really gave you a good idea of what's going on. But if you have any other questions, please go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. And if you have an experience on something revolving combos and feints that you'd like to share, please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to make sure as much accurate information is out as possible. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that kind of fun action. But have a good one and take care.